So welcome everybody. My name is Annalise Gamble. If we haven't met before, I'm the statewide engagement officer here at Serve Virginia. And so I feel really lucky. My role is to chat with folks about AmeriCorps, kind of everything from questions about what AmeriCorps is to how it can help your organization expand and enhance your impact. So I'm really excited to be here today. We also, if you're new to Serve Virginia, we are what's called the State Service Commission. So we serve kind of the Commonwealth of Virginia widely. Just thinking about service and volunteerism, we really believe that there's a strong impact that can be made across the state by folks coming together. And so we really believe in the power of civic engagement, the power of folks coming together to help their community. And AmeriCorps is a really key strategy or way that communities can do that. And so excited to be able to share a little bit more about AmeriCorps. I will try and slow down. I usually make the disclaimer at the beginning. I talk fast because I'm really excited. And so I'll try and quell some of that excitement. But if you have any questions or if I go by something too fast, feel free to drop questions and all of that in the chat. I'm happy to go back. So excited to be here today. Today, our session agenda is going to be to cover kind of broadly what is AmeriCorps. We're not going to go super deeply into all of these topics because we only have an hour together, but I will make sure that we drop links and resources and are able to point you in the right direction. So if you have questions that maybe are more technical than we're going to get to or more broad than maybe we'll have time to cover, there will be lots of places and spaces that you can check out after the session to hopefully help answer those questions. We're also available for one-on-one consultation. So if you hear something and you have a question that's specific to your organization or to your community, we're happy to set up a time to chat more specifically one-on-one about things that might be coming to your mind. We also have a playlist of sessions that we did last year called AmeriCorps 101 around some of the specific pieces about AmeriCorps. And so if you're interested, you can check those out as well. But today we're going to cover what is AmeriCorps and what it looks like here in Virginia. We're going to talk about planning grants. So kind of for those getting started in the AmeriCorps space, what are some kind of first steps that you might be interested in? We're going to talk briefly about the process to apply for AmeriCorps state resources and some of those timelines. And then I'm hoping to really save time for us to do questions and answers and talk about next steps at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is AmeriCorps? AmeriCorps uses people power to tackle community needs. And so there are kind of some broad focus areas that AmeriCorps work usually centers on. We think about things like disaster preparedness, addressing healthy future topics, kind of everything from food access to getting folks access to affordable and quality healthcare. There's work focused on economic opportunity, at K through 12 and higher education, thinking about serving veterans and military families, and work focused on environmental stewardship. And so the work of AmeriCorps has a pretty broad reach and covers quite a few community issues. The folks that serve in AmeriCorps programs as AmeriCorps members or AmeriCorps seniors volunteers serve in different capacities. They can serve both long and short term, behind the scenes or on the front line. And so I give some of these examples just to give a sense of kind of how varied AmeriCorps member service can look and the different ways that your organization might be able to utilize AmeriCorps to help create that impact that you're hoping to make in the community. AmeriCorps members will gain a wide variety of experiences and skills throughout their service. And so some members, all members, I think, get benefit from hands-on experience. They benefit from training and learning about their community and getting to interact with folks that might come from different backgrounds than they do. But then also this is an opportunity to engage folks in kind of specific training and professional development opportunities. So we also see AmeriCorps programs that specifically put folks in programs and in training spaces where they can utilize their time in service or their skills to serve their community as a peer recovery specialist or as a mentor or something like that. And so there's lots of really great ways that AmeriCorps can both serve your community, meet your community needs, and then also think about that experience for the member. It can be really transformative as well. And then kind of the first question that folks always ask when they hear about how great AmeriCorps is kind of, how do I bring this to my community? So organizations like you are often the linkage, accessing AmeriCorps resources and providing opportunities for folks in your community to serve. So we'll talk more about this kind of in greater detail a little bit later, but almost any organization is eligible to apply as long as you're not a for-profit business. So higher ed, K through 12 institutions, local and state government, nonprofits of all shapes and sizes are able to use AmeriCorps as a strategy to help meet their expand their mission or meet their community needs. And so it's a really exciting way that we can kind of see bridging the people power that we often see untapped potential in communities with AmeriCorps, so federal resources and kind of state capacity. And so bringing all this together for the good of the community members is really the goal of AmeriCorps. So let's talk a little bit more about how you do this, right? I've talked about that organizations are often the linkage, kind of connecting a local community with opportunities to serve and be served by AmeriCorps. We won't cover each stream of service in super great detail, but I do want to give folks a sense that one branch of service might not meet all of your needs, but that there are lots of different ways that you can utilize AmeriCorps. And kind of finding which stream of service best meets your capacity can be a really great way to make sure that you're kind of maximizing the potential and engaging the most folks available in your community. I'm going to talk about AmeriCorps State in great detail, so I'm going to skip over that one kind of temporarily. I'm going to talk about AmeriCorps NCCC first. So AmeriCorps NCCC stands for National Civilian and Community Corps. If you're a community organization and you are looking for short-term support, so you're looking for folks to come in for a time-limited project, maybe you need support building community gardens or doing a parks cleanup or different things like that, AmeriCorps NCCC can be a great solution. This is a time-limited kind of short-term capacity support where teams of AmeriCorps members can come in and serve a community. I can talk more about how to access this, but we partner with our regional campus who deploys teams of AmeriCorps NCCC members to serve in communities. They generally serve between 3 to 6 or 3 to 8 weeks, depending on the project, and do a variety of kind of like those hands-on capital projects that can make a great impact. We see that these folks often focus on work that is environmental related or can focus on kind of that community like capacity building. Thinking about, if you need a mural painted, these are other great kind of NCCC projects. If you've had an NCCC project and you want to throw that, what your team did in the chat, feel free to share that as kind of a getting folks ideas going about how they might engage AmeriCorps NCCC in their community. Those are also, those projects are accepted on rolling deadlines. AmeriCorps Vista is another great project. So different from AmeriCorps NCCC, AmeriCorps Vista is looking at a year-long kind of resource. This is for organizations that are thinking, you know what, we would love to do more in our community, or we have bigger dreams than what we're able to do right now, but we need that that help, or we need to build capacity as a step to getting to where we want to be. So AmeriCorps Vista is a great tool or resource to bring into your community when you're thinking about how you're going to get all the pieces that you need together to be able to implement systems or programs that are going to have that impact on your community. Organizations usually utilize AmeriCorps Vista for projects around fundraising, communications, and kind of that community outreach piece, partner development, kind of bringing together coalitions, and thinking about how to research new program models and bring in evidence-based programming to your community. These folks are great. They're often they can be entry level. They can also be of any age. So these folks can come in with a wide variety of skill sets. They're usually extremely passionate about the work. And so they can bring this new lens to projects that your organization just might not have had capacity to do before. The goal for these folks is that they come in, build a system or create infrastructure that can then be utilized and leveraged by your organization to create a greater impact. And then finally, AmeriCorps Seniors. I saw that we have an AmeriCorps Seniors program with us. So Stacy, if you want to drop in the chat a little bit about your program, AmeriCorps Seniors is a great way to involve older adults age 55 and up in service to your community. There are 3 different AmeriCorps Seniors programs, so I'm not going to go too kind of distinctly into all the different ways that AmeriCorps Seniors engages volunteers, but this is a great way to consider how you might engage older members of your community in service to, to either other older adults, specifically younger kids, or anybody at the community level. It's a great way to think about kind of addressing some of those needs around reducing social isolation and engaging older adults in meaningful service to others. It's a great program, especially when folks are thinking, I don't have a huge day-to-day need for volunteers. I don't need somebody in my space 40 hours a week doing, tutoring work or something like that. But I really need a consistent presence that's kind of thinking about how my organization is helping to serve the community. AmeriCorps Seniors can be a great option. And there is an existing funding opportunity available for AmeriCorps Seniors right now as well. So if you have questions about how you might be able to engage AmeriCorps Seniors, we're happy to chat with you more one-on-one specifically about that. And now we're going to really talk about AmeriCorps State. So most of you are probably here because you saw that we have an RFA that's going to be available on the upcoming kind of month or so. And that's specifically for AmeriCorps State, which is the funding that Serve Virginia helps administer for the Commonwealth. AmeriCorps State is a great program that brings people together, really focusing on providing direct service to the community. So unlike Vista, these members are kind of most focused on kind of delivering the direct service. So they're working on the front line, they're engaging with community members, really thinking about how to extend and enhance your impact to the community. Um, making sure that I don't go too off script. AmeriCorps State often has kind of these three levels of impact. So we think about the direct impact on the community. This is a great way to take programs or services that you might not have otherwise been able to grow to a scale to a community level, to really offer this opportunity for more folks to be impacted. This is also a great way if you wish you could engage more community members in service to other local residents. This can be a great way to offer those opportunities. This is also a great experience for those folks that get engaged as AmeriCorps members, right? They'll earn a modest living allowance while they're in their term of service, so it can go to help support some of those living costs. They also earn a Siegel Education Award, which is we tend to avoid the word scholarship, but it could be used for any sort of higher ed or post-secondary training program. And so we can talk more about what that looks like, but it's a great way to help support folks kind of in their long-term education and training journeys. And then we also talk about service to career pathways. So thinking about how their service might be able to serve as a bridge between giving them the training, the skills that they need to then go off into some of these high need career fields like youth mental health or green careers or different things like that. And then for your organization, right? This is a great resource and tool to think about as you're considering how to increase your capacity, how to grow talent pipelines within the nonprofit workforce. And really thinking about how to grow your ability to engage with community members and organizations in this space. We also have some opportunities for AmeriCorps state programs to then align with some of these specialized kind of career workforce service to career pathways and kind of focus on specific critical community needs. So for example, launching in 2025, we're kind of piloting the Youth Mental Health Corps in its first year. So Virginia received a planning grant and is looking to kind of start operation of the Youth Mental Health Corps in September. This program pathway is going to be built up by organizations like you operating AmeriCorps state programs in their community that focus on youth mental health. And so we can talk a little bit more about what this looks like, but just in case you've seen information about the Youth Mental Health Corps, American Climate Corps is another one. There was an Economic Mobility Corps that came out a few years ago. These are AmeriCorps state programs that are then leveraged towards a specific community need. And then there's oftentimes additional resources and opportunities available for those programs as they engage their members in that pathway. So to share a little bit more about what this looks like, I'm excited to invite up Katie Hero from the International Rescue Committee, or IRC, to talk a little bit more about their AmeriCorps operational program. So Katie, I am going to ask you to unmute and kind of bring you up to share with me about your AmeriCorps program. So kind of just to start us off, if you don't mind kind of introducing yourself, giving folks a little bit more of a sense of what you do, and then specifically, what do your members do at IRC?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie. We've had an AmeriCorps program at the IRC for the past 4 years, and we have members doing a lot of different things. So we have multiple focus areas. We have healthy futures, education, economic empowerment, and capacity building. So our members are kind of spread out. We have members at 3 different service sites in Charlottesville and Richmond. And so members, I think one of the great things is that they've really expanded our ability to reach our clients. So we have members doing job readiness training, teaching our clients what to expect when they're entering the U.S. workforce. For context, IRC is a refugee resettlement agency, and so we're working with clients who have newly arrived into the United States. So that's super, super helpful. We have AmeriCorps members who are connecting our clients with primary care providers for health, enrolling kids in school for our youth teams, and really working with our volunteer teams in terms of capacity building. So a little bit of all of the things.
They're kind of a really multifaceted workforce, kind of like the Swiss Army knife, I'm sure. And so I'm curious, what made IRC or what excites you about kind of utilizing AmeriCorps as the way to engage those members in that service?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really lovely opportunity for service. We have a lot of people who, our members are really a diverse group. We have a member who is 20, we have a member who is in his 70s. And so it's attracting a really diverse group of people. And they're bringing a lot of different experience with them. We also have former refugees who are members, and they're bringing all of this experience, and they're learning so much during the year about refugee resettlement, about what it's like to work within a nonprofit or serve within a nonprofit. And then they're going off And when they finish their AmeriCorps year, some of them are staying within IRC. So they're gaining a ton of experience during their AmeriCorps year and bringing all of that into a staff position with us. They're going into other nonprofits. They're going to law school, medical school. And so it's really lovely, I think, from our perspective, to kind of spread the knowledge of what newcomers to Virginia look like, and have these AmeriCorps members kind of continue that journey after they leave AmeriCorps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that. What are some of the benefits that you offer to members, kind of in addition to the living allowance and the education award? Are there sort of specific things that you keep in mind to help recruit that diverse member corps?
Yeah, our biggest thing is professional development. For us, especially, I think taking a look again at like who our AmeriCorps candidates are, we really focus on professional development with them because so many of them want to have a career in refugee resettlement and within nonprofits. And so how do we help them in that journey? And that's a really big selling point when we're talking about recruitment. It's something I mention at every single interview I'm having. So for us, that looks like individual meetings with me where the first meeting we sit down and we say, what job do you want in 10 years? Find me a position description for it. And we'll look at the requirements for that position, and we'll figure out how we can kind of get that started for you now, figure out what your next step is after AmeriCorps, and kind of get you on a path to where you want to be. And then we also have bi-monthly professional development sessions, which are a little bit more broad. So the majority of our members, for instance, love learning about grant writing. And so we always have our grant writer come in and give a course on that. They don't write grants, but they kind of get the entry-level experience of what that looks like. So
Awesome.
professional development is our biggest thing.
Yeah, really building that like toolkit that they can take with them, whether to stay at the IRC or go to somewhere else, and be that, continue to be able to provide that impact. I'm curious for your program. So you mentioned that you work directly with your members, and then I know that you also have site supervisors. Do you mind sharing a little bit about kind of how your members are managed?
Yeah, of course. So every AmeriCorps member has an individual site supervisor. Trust me, you don't want me managing them in that way. And I think that anyone who goes into AmeriCorps will find that you need some support there, because I know so much about AmeriCorps, but I do not know so much about interacting with our clients. And so it's great to have kind of that extra site supervisor there. And that's the person who is training them how to do their day-to-day. So how to have a conversation with a client with an interpreter, what you do when you're going to a home visit, and kind of walking them through what that looks like. And so it's kind of when hours are being recorded, I'm there, but like day-to-day, they kind of have someone else to support them and walk them through what it looks like.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Katie, for sharing a little bit about IRC. And if you want to hang out, we're happy to have folks kind of continue to put questions for you in the chat. And if folks have if that spurred any questions for you, feel free to throw those in the chat as well. But thanks so much, Katie.
Awesome.
I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's jump back in. So maybe that has gotten you really excited and you're thinking, okay, I'm sold. How do I do this? Let's talk a little bit about kind of how pieces like this come together. I always want to share with folks that AmeriCorps can be a big undertaking. It takes a lot of thoughtful planning to make sure that community needs are met, that members are engaging in meaningful service, and that you have the organizational capacity in place to manage all these moving pieces. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the resources available for your organizations. So firstly, we have kind of two sort of funding streams or funding sources that we provide to organizations that are interested in leveraging AmeriCorps. So all of this is related to the people power. Both of these kind of sources of funding are related to building systems and operating those systems to bring folks in to serve your organization. These aren't kind of wide general funding sources that are just going to program management or things like that, but it can be really transformational if you're thinking about, oh, I'd love to engage 10, 15, 20 people in this effort, and I need a way to support them. That's where this kind of grant funding really comes into play. We offer two types of grants. The first is operational grants. So you heard Katie describe how they support their members, kind of what IRC does. And that's sort of, what operational grants fund. They cover the living allowances. They, help to cover costs to operate the program, different things like that. And we can talk more about kind of specifics. And I'll send this deck out as well. So you'll be able to kind of take down some of these numbers, like planning for 10 or more members and how you calculate kind of the cost of what an award might look like, different things like that. I definitely recommend operational grants are usually for folks that have an AmeriCorps program model, either that they've already operated or that, has been in operation somewhere else. And so that's not to say that you can't apply in as a brand new program. But if you're interested in operational funding, definitely make sure to chat with somebody from Serve Virginia so we can help make sure you've got all the right pieces in place. if you're interested in putting those pieces in place and figuring out what that model looks like, we also offer planning grants, which provide support to grant recipients to develop that AmeriCorps program. So while operational grants kind of support the members in service, planning grants support you in developing your organizational capacity to be able to support the members in service. These funds kind of go towards all the planning activities you can think of, from designing your logic model and how your program model is going to work, where your members are going to serve, who's going to manage them, all of those pieces, all the way through to evaluating your program and how this is going to operate within your organization. So to be able to share a little bit more about planning grants, I'm excited to welcome up Joy Jackson from the College of William and Mary to share a little bit more about their planning grant experience. So while I do some computer magic on my end, saw Joy joined us. The College of William and Mary just recently started their AmeriCorps program, just finished their planning grant year. So Joy, thanks so much for being here. Would love to have you introduce yourself a little bit more and share about kind of what the focus of the College of William and Mary's AmeriCorps program is going to be.
Sure. My name is Joy Jackson. I am at William and Mary. I am in an office now called Civic and Community Engagement, where we really focus on cultivating equitable and transformational relationships. So we do that by providing resources to help our students become community-centered leaders. And so our program, I oversee the education and youth development programs. Any student that is interested in working with young people in the community or in the school system comes to see me, and we train them up and get them out there. We really wanted to do a collaboration within the university as well as outside of the university that really focused on flourishing. So our program is really on flourishing in preschoolers. We're working with Head Start programs and as well as in the middle school age group, because we were already working with middle schoolers and we realized that is a key age when a lot of them start losing interest in school. And we wanted to make sure that they all had the proper support that they needed, in particular with a focus on social emotional support. So our program really focuses on mentoring and the supports they need. So we use a curriculum in terms of, or we will use a curriculum, we haven't started yet, within our different programs at the middle school and the preschool level. So it's called Opportunity Flourish, and we're really excited to get started.
I love that. It's so exciting. I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of why AmeriCorps. So when you guys were thinking about how you serve your students and how you serve kind of the greater community, why was AmeriCorps an appealing kind of idea or opportunity that you chose to pursue?
Right. So there were a couple of reasons. In the time that I have been here, I really had the charge of raising the quality of our programs. So our students, our programs are part of our office, which we have certain standards and we use best practice. But many of our students are also a part of a student organization. And so often student organizations are like, hey, this feels good, let's do it. And so we wanted to provide some rigor to our program. And we knew that AmeriCorps would provide the context for that to help us to be able to raise the level of our program. Also, we had some students that were volunteering or students that wanted to volunteer, but because they needed to have a job, they were kind of X'd out of that. And so we were looking at how do we make service more accessible to a larger group of students. So maybe we'll see more African-American students that are volunteering. Maybe we'll see more first-gen students that are volunteering. So it was really important to us to diversify our programs. And so we felt like that was a way to do that. And then also the last thing would be, we've really focused over the past 3 years, we started working with a consultant who focuses on transformational relationships. And so we wanted to look at like, how do we deepen our relationship with our students, but also our partners within the university and outside of the university. And so this just seemed like the perfect opportunity. I have not been an AmeriCorps member, but I have worked with AmeriCorps in a previous, I was a site supervisor for AmeriCorps in a Hampton program about 15 years ago. And then a number of people in my office were AmeriCorps members. So we were all like, yay, AmeriCorps.
that AmeriCorps family, right? Just keeps
Yes.
growing. I always say that
Felt
people
right at
haven't
home.
served yet, right? There's no upper age limit, so there's still
That's
time.
right.
I'd love to hear kind of, so College of William and Mary applied for a planning grant last February. You guys started the planning process last August, September, and you just kind of wrapped up the planning grant year. So I'd love to hear for you, what were some of the biggest takeaways? Do you feel like the planning grant was helpful? And kind of what are the one or two things that you think were most important from that planning grant process?
Well, we definitely deepened our relationship. I would just say just the process of when you have a planning grant, it then says, okay, we actually have a goal, a defined thing, and it gives partners a reason because we're all like in a crunch for time. I don't have time. But if you're like, we're doing this thing, it gives everybody the impetus to, really come together and for us to start figuring it out. And deepen our relationships through the process, because what we did is there wasn't a part of the program that we did not discuss in great detail. So performance measures, evaluations, slot types, slot allocations, schedules, just anything that you can think of, we had meetings where we really fleshed these things out. Like I would do some initial thinking and ask other people to do it when they weren't there, and then come together and us to really try to figure these things out. So I think that's the thing. It gives you, like we just had the Olympics. So, those relay races, you're running, you're about to pass off the baton, you're passing it to yourself, but it feels really good to already be running, So it's like, it's that thing where, and I'm starting now and there's still a lot to do, but there are so many resources that the planning grant provides for you to help you think through all of these things. So you're not just on your own. There's a good structure that's in place to help you to do that. And so that's really good. And you get access to the current grantees. So you start building some relationships there, which is also very helpful. And the last thing I'll point to is the biggest thing if you work for any organization, but one like a university, there's a lot of internal processes that you have to figure out. So we started in January figuring out, like, how do we do AmeriCorps? How do we, meet the federal guidelines of AmeriCorps? How do we follow the process that's here at the university? And it's taken all of those months to really figure it out. And there are still things that aren't figured out. But had we not had that, I think, it just helps a lot. So it's just been a tremendous help.
Yeah, that's so great. I think really speaks to that importance of being able to have the time to get your ducks in a row, even if you don't have, end the process with your ducks all in a row, at least they're in the same space. So it's kind of like, what ducks you're looking for. It can be really helpful when you're thinking about, starting on a process like this can be really
It's true. And we thought we had our ducks in a row before we started the program. Hello.
Everyone thinks it's like, oh, I'm just going to start. It's kind of like,
yes.
There's a lot to think about. And so that's so great to hear that the planning grant really kind of helped you, helped you guys think through some of the pieces where maybe you didn't know there was going to need to be that much like thought and conversation and process and stuff like that.
Right.
And just kind of a programming note. So did you guys chose to use your existing staff capacity instead of hiring a new team member?
Right. We will hire one, but it's going to be very minimum time, just like 10 hours a week to just help with coordinating a few logistical things. But we'll primarily be using the staff we have.
That's great. Well, thanks so much, Joy. I really appreciate you sharing your experience. Folks, Joy is going to hang out for a little bit. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. But I appreciate your time, Joy.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. So hopefully that has given folks kind of an idea of what this can look like on the ground. Applying for AmeriCorps funding can look a lot of different ways, and for every single organization, it can be a little bit different. And so our goal here now today and kind of in this process is really to get you the information that you need to be able to make the best choice for you and for your organization. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk with Samantha Lukashevitz, who's the Serve Virginia AmeriCorps Program Manager, to talk a little bit how to approach applying for AmeriCorps funding. So I'm going to stop sharing so that you guys can see Samantha. And I'm going to spotlight Samantha. So hopefully everyone can see her, see us. We're excited to chat with you a little bit more about AmeriCorps. So Sam, I'll hand it over to you first to introduce yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Samantha Lukashevitz. I'm the AmeriCorps manager for Serve Virginia, an AmeriCorps alum, and been here about 5 years. Super excited to potentially have some new organizations in our portfolio.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sam. And so just to kind of clear things up for folks that might be catching up, we normally do AmeriCorps applications, or we have a request for applications that we put out every February. This year we have a special off-cycle RFA, or round 2 is what we're calling it. That's going to be available in September. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today, but this will apply kind of regardless of which RFA you're specifically applying for. A lot of these tips are kind of evergreen. So to kind of kick us off, Samantha, what should folks know before they start their application? So if they're listening to this webinar, they're excited, they think AmeriCorps could be a great solution, kind of what would you encourage folks to think about first?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Annalise, and great presentation. So I think that folks get intimidated, and that's something that we hear time and time again with the program AmeriCorps. First of all, not knowing what it is. Second of all, not knowing how to access the resources. And so when you're thinking about, is this program right for me? Is this federal funding opportunity right for my organization? I think that all starts with a conversation with our staff. I cannot say enough about the knowledge and experience of the program staff in designing programs, having high quality performance and compliance, and just doing our own due diligence internally to make sure that Virginia has great national service representing us, and addressing the community needs, of course. So number one, start with a conversation about your specific organization with one of the staff. And I think you can schedule an opportunity to do that with Annalise, myself, through her email or through one of these links that Sarah's putting in the chat. That's number one, have a conversation about your organization. Number two,
we might also be able to save you some time. If AmeriCorps isn't the right option, we can help get you to the better resource. And so definitely would echo that.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So part of running an AmeriCorps program is having the capacity organizationally to do it. And there are a lot of like very needy, very deserving organizations that serve the Commonwealth that are not necessarily set up within their own capacity to run the program. It's more than just a grant program. It's a cost reimbursement program. So you're running the program, and then we're not just cutting you a check and saying, here, run this program. We're saying, hey, let's be really thoughtful about what these people are going to be doing and how they're serving the community and how they're directly serving your clients or your beneficiaries. So number one, have a conversation. Number two, does your organization have the capacity to run programming on top of what you're already doing? Some great questions in the chat about, did you hire somebody else or did you just add that to a staff person's job? And depending on the organization, we all wear multiple hats. We're all kind of like doing 110% in our different organizations. And a lot of time in the planning phase, it is added to somebody's duties. And then operationally, if you're funded, maybe you hire a program director. But not every organization can do that. I was a program director for an AmeriCorps program in Roanoke, Virginia many years ago, and the duties were split between the employees that already worked at that organization. So that's number two, capacity of your organization. And then number three is, are you going to be having meaningful service for these members? So it is not enough just to say, hey, we really want to tutor more youth, or hey, we really want to build trails, or hey, we really want to do tax preparation, or financial literacy for adults. It's like, what exactly is a core of people between 10 and 15 people going to be doing every day? What's the meaningful service opportunity that you're going to provide that, number one, is going to be attractive to people in order to be able to serve at your organization, because you're competing with the job market, you're competing with other volunteer opportunities, you're competing with other organizations of AmeriCorps programs across the country. So is there meaningful service coupled with these different nuanced benefits or workforce development initiatives, or how can you build this person as a leader and a future job seeker? So I think those are the three things you want to consider and ask yourself really seriously if you're interested in having an AmeriCorps program.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I would say if any of those questions have like brought things to your mind of like, oh, we are interested, but we don't need 10 people, or oh, we're interested, but we don't have the capacity. I would still encourage you to reach out and schedule a time to chat with us because we're happy to think about how different AmeriCorps programs that aren't AmeriCorps state might help meet your needs and or help connect organizations. Oftentimes organizations that don't maybe necessarily need all 10 people at their organization will come together and think about how they can make a regional strategy or something like that. And so we're happy to help sort of brainstorm what those alternative options can look like. So hopefully, Kimberly, that answers your question about co-applying. There's definitely some opportunity there, but we're happy to help sort of have those conversations. So Samantha, one of the first things that we normally encourage folks to think about is, reviewing last year's request for applications or RFA to kind of consider if this is something that they're ready to take on with that organizational capacity piece. I'm curious how you suggest folks kind of start that process of looking through last year's RFA, how to navigate the document, all that kind of things.
Sure, that's a great question. So I'm not sure what everyone's experience is on this call looking at different types of grants, right? There's foundational grants, like let's say Allstate or Walmart. There's state grants, and then there's federal grants. And what Serve Virginia is doing essentially is taking the notice of funding opportunity from the federal government that they release every September, and then we're putting our own kind of spin on it into a request for applications process at the state level. So we're putting all these different terms and conditions within the RFA, and a lot of legalese, right? We're a state agency, we have our own terms and conditions. The federal agency has their own terms and conditions. And then coupled in between all of these like legalese and like big words that, people are skimming are the things like, what does my program look like? So it can be difficult to read this like 50-page document, and I totally get that. And I would, number one, read it to the best of your ability when it comes out, number one. Number two, and this is not attended as well as it should be every year. During the process, we have a call about a week or two after the RFA is released. So typically it's released in February, and like the second or third week of February, we have a call, basically an RFA call. And it goes through, every single section of the RFA. And that's your opportunity to ask questions. Unfortunately, during this RFA process, there are certain procurement laws that limit our ability while there's an open procurement, because it is a competition, and to give you advice or help you understand things. So all of the questions that you have, even if it's like, do I need to give you my logic model, or can members do this or that? We cannot answer any of those questions like one-offs. They have to go through the procurement office. And that is a pretty tedious process when it comes to getting your answer, because all of the information is going to EVA, which is the state website for our procurements. So unless you're checking that every day, you don't necessarily know if the answer to your question has been posted, and you're just waiting. And then all of a sudden it's the last minute and you need to submit your application. So in order to tackle it, number one, I would read the one from last year, just read it. And, I know none of you have free time, but if you're trying to fall asleep, read it. And then number two, schedule a time with us, because we can answer questions right now before it's released. And then number three, make sure that you attend the RFA meeting, and the meeting and the link is in the RFA, and put that on your calendar, and make sure that you, your financial person, maybe an authorized rep, someone in leadership, is attending it, even if it's in the background. So you're listening for things that other people might be asking that you hadn't even thought of. So, it's easy to say, pick it apart section by section, make sure that you're paying attention to the operational section, or make sure you're paying attention to the planning grant section, but they are so large. And when you get into the requirements of answering the questions, and also looking at the rubric of how you're going to be scored, and then also looking at the risk assessment we're going to be doing, it can be overwhelming. So
yeah, so definitely schedule time early and often. And we're happy to answer those questions before we have to, have to run things through procurement. And so by signing up for this webinar, you'll be on our list. You'll get an email when the RFA releases. So we'll send you an email saying, hey, it's available on EVA. This is the link to check out the RFA. And then like Samantha said, the the pre-application conference call will be in that RFA so that you can attend that. And we'll make sure that you kind of have access to all information that you need beforehand so that you can hopefully prepare a strong application to submit. The applications will likely be due mid-October. If they, assuming everything releases on time, they will release early September and be due mid-October. So definitely feel free to reach out to us in the interim. I know that only gives a couple weeks, but we're happy to answer questions now as early as we can before the RFA drops. Sam, any other thoughts about kind of things to keep in mind as folks are starting to put together their application materials?
I would look at the eligibility to make sure that your organization is eligible. Eligible organizations include nonprofits, a state government, local government. You also, in order to be able to receive federal funding, even though we're a pass-through and we're the state, it is federal funding. You need to be active in SAMS, which is I don't know exactly what it stands for, but it's called a SAMS registration. And you need to have that number in order to be able to receive federal funding. And if you don't, then you cannot receive federal funding. I would also pay attention to the attachments. Thank you, Sarah, that we are asking for. We're asking for the attachments, and it's in 2 sections in the RFA, because we are looking at we're not looking at your website. We're not looking at you as a person. We're not even looking at your application yet. We're looking at the attachments that you send to see if your organization has the capacity to run the program. And then all of that data that we're collecting through the attachments goes into the risk assessment. And then you have to have a passing score in order to be able to even get to the scoring round. One thing that I think folks get caught up on or don't send in the right materials is the audited financial statements. And sometimes your organization doesn't meet the audit threshold. I think it's around $750,000 in an operating budget. So we would accept like a comfort letter or something from independent verified accountant or CNA or something to that effect, that they did go over your information and it was reconciled and it looked okay. The exact verbiage will be in the RFA. But what we don't want is just a P&L that you can run from QuickBooks. So it needs to be in review or reviewed, excuse me. What else, Annalise?
Yeah, and then I think that just the 2 major questions to continually ask yourself as you're preparing your application is making sure that your application is making it clear what members are doing and how you as an organization are going to be able to manage what you're proposing. And that's for planning or operational grants, kind of making sure that the meaningful service is clear and that it's clear that your organization has the capacity to supervise your members. So like Katie was mentioning, whether that's across many staff members, or if it's something where, you're proposing a core that's going to work directly with one person, or even if you're just proposing a planning process, right? We want to make sure that you as an organization have the capacity to do what you're going to propose. And so sometimes that might be talking about partner organizations or, focusing on different staff members, but really just kind of making sure that those elements are clear. And then, would just echo what Samantha said about SAM registration. That's something that you can do for all federal grants. So if you go ahead and get registered for SAM, that doesn't commit you to anything, but it's a great way to help get your organization ready if you're considering applying. So I'm excited now. We're going to pivot a little bit to questions, right? Questions and answers. We've got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to tackle some of the questions that were submitted in the registration process, and then happy to kind of go through if there's questions that we missed in the chat itself. So there were a couple of folks that asked about focus areas, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate if it wasn't clear already, the disaster services, food, outreach programs, all of those kinds of things are kind of under the AmeriCorps umbrella. And so we can help you if you have specific questions about kind of what focus area this falls into. We're happy to help you think through that. And some of it is based on performance measurement. So set up a time to chat with us, and we're happy to help you think through what that can look like. I also just, to reiterate, happy to meet with folks one-on-one if you've got, interest about what this can look like, or maybe even designing a future plan. So if you're thinking, I'm not going to apply this September, I'm probably not going to apply next February, we're still happy to chat with you about kind of what your timeline might look like if you want to let us know. And then another question was about if AmeriCorps can help with communication and fundraising strategies. And so just want to kind of reiterate, yes, that's probably, depending on the scope, something that we would consider a VISTA project as opposed to AmeriCorps State. But if you set up a time to meet with us, we're happy to talk about that one-on-one with you about what your members would do, what the scope of their service would be, and the right AmeriCorps program for you to leverage at your organization to make that happen. Sam, I'm kind of going to throw this to you. What types of activities / tasks do members perform in support of an organization? If there's anything that comes to your mind that you wanted to make sure to mention.
Yeah, I would just say, that question is difficult. Everyone always wants to know what can they do. And it's direct service, right? So it's when you talk about fundraising, when you talk about IT, when you talk about marketing, when you talk about volunteerism, and like building systems or doing office work, let's say, we really think that's capacity building behind the scenes. And direct service, AmeriCorps State is direct service. So they're directly tutoring or mentoring youth. They're directly building trails. They're directly teaching or supporting financial literacy classes. They're directly working with a client on increasing their knowledge about public health resources in the area. They are directly, like I think that probably gives us an idea. They're directly working with clients or beneficiaries of the organization.
Yeah, and we can help folks think through if you have capacity building needs. AmeriCorps Vista is likely going to be something that can help there, but AmeriCorps State kind of is that broad, vast kind of Swiss Army knife where folks can use it in a lot of different ways. And so there's not kind of one specific type of activity or task that we're looking for, but that folks are just engaging in meaningful service to community members is really the goal there. There are also some specific questions about like specific applications of AmeriCorps. And so Sam, I don't know if you want to share your trick about just kind of Googling it, like to see what other AmeriCorps programs do kind of across the country.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think I saw in the chat too, like, are there public health initiatives or really Google is your best friend. There sometimes, we don't even know the breadth and the reach of the AmeriCorps programming across the country. And so, there's no new ideas anymore, right? Like we're living in the future. So if you are interested in AmeriCorps program design or member service, that it probably exists. I was just thinking, we were talking to an aquarium and I was like, what could AmeriCorps do at an aquarium? But if there's a community need, right? So that could take many different forms. Education, increased knowledge, there's not with AmeriCorps Vista, Volunteers in Service to America, there's a specific like poverty focus, but with AmeriCorps State National, it's just a community need. If it's a pressing community need that your organization serves, then there's probably a model out there that will do it. So you could just Google, AmeriCorps Aquarium or AmeriCorps Service Aquarium, just as an example. And then probably the My AmeriCorps portal will come up and you'll see probably a paragraph or so or organizations. I mean, that's what I do all the time. If someone comes to us and says, hey, I'm really interested in doing X, Y, and Z, I'll see if there's a precedent set. If there's not, we can make our own way. We're Virginia. We can do anything we want to do. But I would suggest starting there. It's probably a good idea.
Absolutely. And you can reach out to us and we're happy to both kind of do two things. We're happy to send over models that we know about. So if you're interested in working in a community health system, we have a couple of programs in Virginia that do that in certain, in specific communities. And so we can kind of send you their model to consider as you are sort of thinking about building your own model. Or if you're interested in joining a program that already exists, we might be able to help connect you with folks either in your geographic area or we have programs called National Directs, which operate at a multi-state level, and they might be, recruiting new sites for their members to serve at. And so that's another way where if your organization isn't ready to apply for AmeriCorps, you might be able to serve as a service site. And, we can chat with you one-on-one about what that might look like and how to find a program that aligns with the need you're looking to serve and different things like that. And so feel free to reach out and to ask us about those questions as they come up. Another question from the chat is if members all need to be serving in the same type of position or doing the same type of work towards the community need, or if they can be serving in various types of roles, impacting many different community needs. So Sam, if you want to take a first stab at that, I'm happy to answer that as well.
Certainly. So there are probably organizations on this call that do different things, right? You might have a food pantry and you might do some after school education and you might do some financial literacy for the adults or the parents of those kids that you're tutoring. So there's nothing that says that all the AmeriCorps members in your program have to only serve in your food pantry or they only have to tutor the youth. If you have a multidimensional program design, that's totally fine. As long as you're mission true and you're staying true to what your organization does, and you have the capacity to supervise those members who are serving in the food pantry and in the after school program and at the financial literacy program, that's totally fine. I think IRC, the International Rescue Committee, has a design similar to that, where their members are not only doing the same thing, they're doing multiple things. I would hesitate to, this is why the planning grant is so important, because you get to look at all those different aspects and those different ways that you want to incorporate AmeriCorps into your programming that already exists and expand it. Whereas in a first year operational, if you just apply straight to an operational and you're going to tell us that you're doing 3 or 4 different things, we're probably not going to fund you doing 3 or 4 different things, just because the program can be difficult to manage if you have all your hands in those baskets. So no, they don't have to do the same thing, even, different slot types, not that we'll get into the weeds, but if you have one member who's serving 300 hours and then one member who's serving 1,700 hours, and they're both serving in the food pantry, they could be doing different things. So there you go.
Absolutely. And I would, if Sarah shared the link earlier, I know, and maybe can share it again for the AmeriCorps 101 series that we did last fall. We have a whole episode or kind of session around the intermediary model, which is kind of how we refer to those models that are working across multiple focus areas or working across multiple service sites. So that's something to check out if you're interested in building a model that might be serving in a couple of different capacities. And would also reiterate, a planning grant is a great way to have the capacity to have space to build that kind of model, because there's a lot more that goes into it than just kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to request 6 people and they're going to go do 6 different things. We can really help you take the time to think through, what are they doing? How are they going to be supported? What different pieces do you need in place to help them do that thing well? And so a planning grant can be a great way to support that. Sam, a technical question for you about match. Are applicants required to match at a certain amount? And is it different for planning and operational grants?
Excellent question. So yes, you are required to match every year that you have an AmeriCorps program. So a planning grant, yes, you do have to match. There's 2 different things here. Planning grants do have to match. It's different than I think a lot of us understand match to be, in that you are providing 24% of the cost of the program. So AmeriCorps funding can only fund up to 76% of your total program. So you're providing 24% of the funding of the total program, and we call that match. There's a number of different ways that you can do that. In the planning grant stage, it's 24%. And then for this year, if you applied to this request for applications, your first year of operational is 24%, and then it goes up in your 4th year. And then moving forward, the max is going to be 35%, I believe. So.
And those match levels can be found in the RFAs. So folks can check that out if they're interested. I think we have hit most questions, a couple of others. So if you're interested, I'll just kind of make a plug. If you're interested in applying for things like the Climate Corps or Youth Mental Health Corps, definitely reach out to us and we're happy to meet with you one-on-one about what those look like. Essentially, those organizations apply for AmeriCorps State, so they build an AmeriCorps State program, they apply for AmeriCorps State resources, and then there's usually additional either funding or connections or kind of service to career supports for members that those organizations have access to, if that makes sense. So there's kind of still a foundational AmeriCorps program at work there, and then the Climate Corps and Youth Mental Health Corps are kind of additions on top of the AmeriCorps State model. And yes, a planning grant can be used to establish any of these types of AmeriCorps State programs. And there is no sign on the dotted line kind of commitment. If you apply for a planning grant and learn through the process that this isn't, the best fit for you, you still get supports in finding kind of what other AmeriCorps or other volunteerism resources might be of use to your organization. But the planning grant is most helpful for organizations that know that they want to apply for AmeriCorps State and to apply that to either Climate Corps, Youth Mental Health Corps, anything like that. We can also connect you to grantees. So if you're interested in kind of seeing who are AmeriCorps grants in Virginia, what does this look like? We have them all listed on our website and can also kind of one-on-one personally connect you with organizations that align with kind of programs in your target area, or if you're looking to partner with a specific type of partner, we can help kind of make those connections. And or if you have somebody in mind where you're thinking, gosh, there's a partner in my community that I wish had an AmeriCorps program, we're happy to collaborate with you to set up a local or regional kind of info session like this to spread the word about what AmeriCorps is and how folks can bring AmeriCorps to their organizations. Oftentimes, AmeriCorps is most successful when you think about it in a community lens. So thinking about it beyond maybe just your organization, there's usually a lot to that you can leverage or a lot to mobilize when you think about it from a, how can I bring other partners alongside our program to really make it the most impactful? So excited to be able to share that with folks, both one-on-one, and then we'll also send out that link in the follow-up resources from this call so you can check out kind of how AmeriCorps is at work across Virginia. So with that, I just want to thank everybody so much for your time, so much for your attention. I hope that this helped answer some of your questions about what applying for AmeriCorps resources can look like here in Virginia. Sort of next steps from here, hopefully you heard the theme here is set up a time to chat with us. We'd love to chat with you one-on-one about your idea, about your project. The RFA will drop kind of beginning of September. Please attend that pre-application conference call that will be listed in the RFA, as that will answer a lot of questions and be the most direct way we can answer questions when the RFA is out. So please make sure to watch out for that.